So shouldn't we be standing 2 metres apart? Well, it doesn't matter because I'm not real. I thought I was the hologram. Nope, you're the real person. Really? Yeah, so crack on and introduce the video. Ah, right. Hope you're all staying safe. And staying 2 metres apart. And that too. Welcome to Lightroom Bite Size. In this video, we're going to take a look at how we can edit a photograph in Photoshop while we're in Lightroom. The link, you know. He's not wrong. To be honest, the majority of the edits that you do to your photographs can be done inside of Lightroom. But occasionally there's times when you do need to jump into another piece of software. And of course, Lightroom is bundled together with Photoshop. And they live together. It's fantastic. They're brother and sister. So you can seamlessly jump between one to the other. Now, don't get me wrong, you may never have to jump into Photoshop and maybe that's not your thing. But there's certain things that you may want to do and only Photoshop can do it. So let me just give you a couple of examples. Well, obviously the one on the screen is the one we're going to work on today. And we're going to add a reflection from the buildings above in the water below. Now, obviously that's something we couldn't do in Lightroom. Let me show you another one then. It's a photograph that I took in Madrid. And you can see that the lady walking past the barbershop window, she's carrying a plastic carrier bag. And the image would look so much better if she wasn't carrying a plastic bag, but unfortunately she was. But you can remove that in Photoshop, and that's what I did. I took it across into Photoshop, and there you go. There is the bag. Well, I was going to say there's the bag gone, but obviously it's gone. But yeah, that's the sort of thing you do in Photoshop, and you can't do that, obviously, in Lightroom. So you have to do that type of thing in Photoshop. So how do you do it then? How do you get an image and take it across into Photoshop? Well, it's easy. So there are a number of ways then that you can take this shot into Photoshop. One of them is to just jump up to the top menu and the drop down, and then just drop down photo and just look for edit in. And there you can see the top one, edit in Photoshop. And you've also got the shortcut, which is, because there's a Mac, it's Command E, and dare say it be Control E on a PC. There's other applications I could edit it into, but we'll look at those in future videos. But this is the one I would go for. So there's two ways then. Click on there, use the shortcut, or the way I often do is just to right click on the image. And if I do a right click on the image, I can see it there, edit in, and I'll just select Photoshop. So let's do that. And this image will open up in Photoshop. And there is then in Photoshop all ready for me to start the edit. Now, you might be new to Photoshop, and so there may be things that I go through. I'll try and go through as slowly as I can. But as I say, it's not really a Photoshop tutorial as such. But anyway, you can follow along. But the first thing I'm going to do is just show you something really simple. Now, this is probably going to seem a bit strange, but anyway, I'm just going to draw a box just here. Okay. And I'm going to fill that with red. And why am I doing that? Just to show you something really. So I filled it with that red colour. What I'm going to show you now is just what happens when you take it back to Lightroom. So imagine I've done some fancy edits on this photograph other than just putting a red box on, but imagine I've done some fancy edits, and all I need to do is to go up to this little bar here, with the name of the file on, and just close it down. So I'm going to close it down, and I'll be prompted, do you want to save the changes that you've made? And I will just say yes, and I'll just save it. And what happens now is those corrections have been saved into Lightroom. And there it is. We're back in the Lightroom environment. And look, there's the original image, unedited. And here's the one that's just come back from Photoshop with a red square on. I don't want a red square on, obviously. But that was just to show you how easy. Now, if I press the letter I, the information will come up there, the name and stuff. But you can see now the file extension is .tiff, and a TIFF file contains tons of lovely goodness. It's a lovely big file size, and yeah, so it's in super high quality. Unfortunately now there's a red square on, so we don't want that. So let's go back to this image here, and I will do exactly the same thing. And again, remember, because Lightroom is non-destructive, this is my digital negative, DNG. And I can export this and do millions of things with it and never ever change this original image. So I'm just going to click on I to get rid of that information because I don't want that. And take my usual route into Photoshop. Right click, edit in, Photoshop. And you know what happens now. Off it goes on its little journey, and it'll eventually open up in Photoshop. And there it is, all ready for me to edit.
That is how simple it is to take a photograph into Photoshop to edit, and then return to Lightroom. Please continue watching if you would like to see how to add a reflection. The following content assumes you have some understanding of Photoshop. We're sorry if it looks a little complicated, but please enjoy.
So how are we going to create this reflection then? We've got this body of water below this line here, and so we need to take what's above and basically put it onto the water. So different people will show you different ways of doing it, but this is the way I'm going to do it. So I've got this tool selected here. It's the rectangular marquee tool, and that allows me to create a selection. So if I click and drag, I'm going to drag an area sort of around about there. Let's have a look. I'm going to click that area there. Right, so I've now got that body of water selected. Now that's not what I want to copy, obviously. So I need to move this selection then to the area that I do want to copy. So as long as you see, if I'm outside the selected area, the cursor changes to, it expects me to draw something else when I do that. So just make sure that you're inside the collection. Make sure you're inside the selection, and that will allow you to move that selection then. And that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to move it up because the area I want to copy is just here. Obviously I want to copy the buildings and stuff above. So that's the area I want to copy. Now to copy that, I'm going to press Command J. Now for a PC it's Control plus J. But anyway, for a Mac it's Command and J. Now I've now copied that area onto its own layer. Now again, this is not a Photoshop tutorial really, but what Photoshop does, and what it's great at, is that you create multiple layers and that gives you multiple effects. So if you look over here, I'm just going to double click on this, by the way, and give it a name. So I've called it reflection, and we've got our original background and reflection. If I turn the background off, you can see now on its own layer is the area that's going to become the reflection. Okay, and I can switch that layer off, and this is what Photoshop is good for those layers and creating composite images and stuff like that. Now what I need to do now is to flip that image. So I'm going to press Command T, and it'd be Control T on a PC. So now that just selects that area ready for me to manipulate it. So again, make sure that you're inside that area and just do another right click. And when I do that, I want to flip that selection vertically, because that's how I'll create the reflection. So click onto there and then just hit return to accept that. Now I need to move it downwards, so I jump up here to this tool palette and just select the move tool. Come back into the image and then just drag it down. And there you go. You can use your arrow keys to manipulate it a bit better. I'm just going to drag it a little bit more as well. I'm going to press Command T, put my finger on the Shift key, and I'm just going to make that a little bit bigger, because there's a bit of a white line there that I don't like. But anyways, that should do it. Now you may well think, well, that's great, that's a a fantastic reflection, but for me it doesn't really look real, it doesn't look convincing. So I need to put some movement into that water, and I'm going to show you a few different ways putting the movement in, making it look more realistic, and I'm even going to add some waves as well, just to sort of give the illusion, well, just to fool people really, that the reflection's real. So to add the movement, I'm going to use the blur tool. I'm going to use 2 blur tools, but before I do that, I'm going to just jump up here, and I'm going to jump into here and select Convert for Smart Filters. Now, I could give you a big explanation of why I'm going to do that, but hopefully as I go along you'll see why I've done it. But anyway, I'm going to click on here first and just accept that. Then I need to put some motion blur in. So I come up to my filter section, drop down to where it says blur, and I have a various different blurs that I can apply, and the one I'm going to go for is motion blur. Click on that, and straight away it's applied a lovely sort of motion blur to the water, and it looks quite realistic, doesn't it? Now if you notice my settings, let me move this over here. If you notice the settings I've used a 90 degree and a distance of 30. Now look, if I put it to level like that, the blur is now going horizontal, and that doesn't look realistic to me. I want the blur to be going vertical, and that's why I selected 90 degrees. I knew it wouldn't stop on 90. There we go, 90 degrees. And of course you can adjust the distance. Now watch when I do this. When I adjust that distance, you might look at that and think, oh, that looks better, Frank. And it's the great thing about being creative, isn't it? Because we've all got different taste, different perceptions of how things should look. I think it looks better on 30, but when you do yours, you can by all means decide what way you want to do it. So I'm going to click on OK. Next thing then, if I just zoom in over here, I may well think that the edges of the building and these windows and various other things are too sharp. So I'm going to apply another blur. So up to the filters, find the blur selections, and this time I'm going to go for Gaussian blur. Some people say Gaussian blur, but I think it's Gaussian blur. And I click on that, and it was already set to 2 where I need it to be. Now if I just switch the preview off, let's put that over there. Switch the preview off, you'll see that's without the blur, that's with the blur. It's only subtle, but it's enough to make that look more realistic for me. So I'm going to accept that, just click on OK. And that's that part of it done. So let me just double click on there, just zoom out a little tiny bit. That looks great, doesn't it? The reason I converted this reflection to smart filters is because I can always go in and change those values whenever I want. Now again, this is a lot to take in because it's essentially a Lightroom tutorial, but anyway, I'm doing this video because people have asked how you put the reflection in. Don't blame me, don't shoot the messenger. If I double click on where it says Gaussian blur, I can go in and change that. So in other words, I can always retrospectively change it. I can always carry on changing it and altering it, to my heart's content. Whereas if I wouldn't have changed it to a smart filter, I wouldn't be able to do that. So there you go. That's why I've done that. So that looks real-ish, but we need some waves now. So I'm going to add some waves, and that should take it even more to that realistic look. Now before I add the wave effect, I'm just going to come across to where it says reflection. I'm going to come to this layer, do a right click, and I'm going to change it to a smart object. Now again, it would be a long explanation to explain why I've done that. Just trust me, that's what you should do. And, because like I say, I keep saying this, it's not a Photoshop tutorial. Well, it wasn't meant to be a Photoshop tutorial, but anyway, let's carry on. So now I've done that, I need to go up to my filter section, go to distort and select wave, which is just here. Click on that. Now again, I could go through what all these things mean, amplitude and wavelength and stuff, and by all means you can play around with them. but and it will give it different wave sizes and the amplitude of the wave and stuff. Hey, you can play with that, can't you? But I've already set this to what I think would be ideal for this particular photograph. So 100 generators, and you can see here maximum of 10, maximum of 6, and I obviously want the waves to be horizontal. So that's the way I've got that set. You can play around with that. It is a bit disappointing that it doesn't give you a preview below, and it's also a bit disappointing that this box is so small and you can't make it any bigger, so you just have to go with it basically. So I'm going to select that, all those settings, and click on OK. And you can see we have now got waves in the water. Now I think the waves, there's too many of them, and I only want them to just show through now and again. I only want them to be visible in certain places. So to do that, I am going to take you across to where the layers are, and here's what we've just done. There's the wave in the smart filters that we created, and this little box here, this is what's called a mask. Now we use masks in Lightroom as well, so maybe you're familiar with masks, hopefully you are. But if you can imagine, this mask is white, so that means to me, what did they say? White reveals, black conceals. So because it's white, we can see 100% of all of the waves that I've added. Now I don't want to see all of the waves, so, and that's the bit we're going to tackle now, isn't it? So I'm going to cover that white window that we're looking through. I'm going to paint it black so you can't see through that window, and therefore you won't see any of the waves. So to do that, I'm going to click on it, and I'm going to press Command or Control I. And what that does is invert the mask. In other words, paint it black. So now we can't see anything, and that's because it's black. So I need to rub away some of that black area on the mask to reveal the waves below. So to do that, I need a brush. So I'm going to select a brush. This one will do. And I'm going to set the opacity to 40%. And I'm going to make sure the colour is on white. Now, if you've got different colours there, just press D. D just means default, and it will go back to these black and white colours. Okay, and there's the brush, and I'm going to now paint in where I think there should be little waves. Now let's just start here. I'm going to paint in. Did you see that then? Few little waves appeared. Let's do quite a bit round there, and some there. All very subtle. Some there, some there. Maybe some over there. And I'm just randomly putting waves in. Now it is ever so subtle, but that's what I want. I don't want the waves to be all over the place. I just want to give the impression that that is actually water, which of course we know it isn't, because it's just what I've copied from above, isn't it? So maybe a few more there. Though that worked quite well just there, didn't it, on the building itself. So that would do. I'm happy with that. And is it finished? Well, not really. There's two more things I want to do. And I'm just going to change the tool. I'm just going to come out of the brush and go to this little move tool, just so I can point to things. Reflections are generally darker. And this is the same sort of the same sort of luminosity, if you like, as what's above. And of course it's going to be, because I actually flipped the image, didn't I? So I want this to be darker. So what I'm going to do is make sure, again, we're still on this reflection layer, and I'm going to go to the adjustments. Now again, it's a lot to take in, I know, but if you follow along, I may actually, shall I do that? Below I might give you a link to where you can download this photograph, or you can ask me for it, and I will send it to you. We'll get it to you some way. What I need to do then is darken this, and to do that I'm going to use curves. Now curves are something that you should know about, because we've got curves in Lightroom. So I'm going to click on there, and I'm going to drag from the center, and when I do that, you can see everything's going to go darker. Now the problem is the whole image has gone darker, and I only wanted the bottom part to go darker. I just wanted the water to go darker. So to do that, we create something called a clipping mask. All you need to know is that we click on this little icon here, and it will create this clipping mask. And what's happening is the curves which we've just created are only going to affect the layer that's directly below, and you can see the arrow is pointing to this reflection layer, and so we've just darkened the piece below, which is great, and that's what we wanted. We didn't want the whole image, we just wanted this bit, and that's looking really, really good. Now the last thing I'm going to do is again select the reflection layer, and I'm just going to change its opacity, and I'm going to, not by much, I'm just going to drop the opacity using this slider to about, I don't know, probably about 95, something like that. Let's try 90, 93. It's settled on 93. And that is the edit complete. And I think it looks great. Now, of course, because everything's on its own layer, you can always go in and finesse what you've done. For the curves, for instance, maybe I might think the bottom's a bit too dark, and I can lighten it up, and I can do various things. I could even go in and put more waves in just by double clicking here on the wave tool, and maybe changing the number of generators. Let's take it up to 200 just for fun. Let's see what that does. But you can see there it actually put more sort of movement in the water. That's the great thing about Photoshop and I suppose Lightroom as well, is it's not destructive. So I'm just going to go back in and take that down. I think let's put it back to more or less where it was. Yeah, and that looks great. So once I've done that, all I need to do is, you remember when I did very early on when I drew the little red box, I just need to go up to here and close it down. And if I close that down, it will ask me, do I want to save? And I will say yes. And it saves, and it will go back into Lightroom. So I will have access to it there. So let's open up Lightroom, and there it is in Lightroom. So if we looked at the previous one, so far we had this one, which was the original. I mean, crikey, look how different it looks there. Then we put a red square on it. But anyway, we went from that to this with the reflection on, and it looks fab, doesn't it? So I hope that's given you a little insight into taking stuff across into Photoshop and how easy they work, they sort of integrate. And it's easy, isn't it? So I hope you enjoyed that. And also, you take something away from that little introduction into Photoshop and layers. Actually, it was quite advanced. But by all means, ask me loads of questions. So I hope you enjoyed that little video. And above all else, though, I hope you're staying safe. Remember, keep 2 meters apart. And just look after yourselves. If we all stick to the things we're being told to do, we can save the planet. And I know that sounds so dramatic. I never thought I'd be saying that. But it's true. If we all do that, we can all stay safe and have a fantastic life. Now, if you enjoyed the video, put one of those little thumb things up and consider subscribing. But above all else, thanks so much for watching. You take care of yourselves, and I'll see you all in the next upload. Take care, and I'll see you later.
Take a photograph and make the moment last ever perfect. Photo company. Take a photograph, make the moment last with the perfect photo company.